I'm Emily Keene with Keene Dressage, and this is part 2 of Why Emily. So the second concept that I want to cover is I'm really big on specific language. I think that a lot of times we have these catchphrases that are used, and they often don't have the effect on the rider that we really want. And I'm going to give you a couple of the really common examples that I see. The first one is stretch up. So when you tell a rider to stretch up, usually what happens to the rider is something like this. And that's actually not what I think we're going for. Normally when an instructor, I believe that usually when an instructor tells a rider to stretch up, what they're trying to fix is some kind of alignment issue. So there's lots of different ways to be out of alignment. One of the common ones is to have your rib cage falling backwards, okay? Another one of the common ones is to be asymmetrical. So you might have one shoulder down, or you might have your spine not on the center line but leaning, okay? You could be hunching forward, right? You might be tucked under on your butt like this. There are so many different ways to be out of alignment. And that phrase, stretch tall, stretch up, I think is used as a blanket phrase to help someone get into alignment. And I think that that's inadequate. With my students, if they're out of alignment, I give them really specific instructions about where they're out of alignment. So I want to point out that, let's say you've been riding like this for a really long time. Well, I want, for my students, I want your rib cage and your pelvis to be very much aligned with each other. I don't want your rib cage. Can you see how my rib cage is it's on a different plane than my pelvis? So this is a really common thing that happens with people. And so to get more in alignment, if I tell you to stretch up, that's not going to help you. But I might come along and ask you to bring your sternum down. And I want to point out that that can feel really strange. It can feel like you're just completely crunched in there. And it's important in that moment to have an instructor who can assure you that you're in the right place and to hang in there with that strange feeling, and also can catch you when you go too far. So that's the healthy, normal learning curve for someone, is to make a correction and then eventually go too far. And you want an instructor, and what I do is I assure people that's where you want to be, even if it feels really strange. And then also, don't worry, I'll catch it. I'll let you know when you go too far. And there's a lot of examples of this. I think we need to be using more specific and more helpful language for people, and to translate what those phrases really mean. So my other off the top of my head example is having people put their heels down. So I believe that phrase, heels down, is intended to align the rider's leg correctly on the horse. What very often happens, instead of having a leg that gets lined up on the horse, is a rider that pushes on their stirrup, locks their knee, and their butt comes out of the saddle. I also tipped forward, and that's another really common thing. If you're pushing on your stirrups, it very often tips your upper body forward. So for me, I almost never use that phrase, because I want to get the rider set up from the top of the leg down. And the correct way of getting your heel down takes so much strength up here in your upper leg that it can be way down the path in your riding career to where you really get solid and you get that look. So I'm a real stickler for specifics. And if that's the kind of thing you like, you might like me as a teacher. Those are just a couple of examples. I'm going to move on to the next concept. Thanks.